Thank you, everyone, for being here today for our meeting. Both Corey Branch and Stormy Fort are absent and excused today. We are going to start the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. And let's see, I believe Mary Black, you are leading us.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we will start with the consent agenda. We have one item that has been pulled by Councilmember Jones, C6. Could I have a motion to approve the remainder?
I move to approve the consent agenda, the remainder of it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Councilmember Jones?
Hi, thank you so much. Sorry. Yes, it is the HR, I want to make sure I get this right. I'm pulling the human resources policies 309A through 318. And it's really just for clarification as we change policies. There were some questions that I had in there in regarding the grievance procedure, and we have representation from city staff, but I'm wondering who represents the employee. I know that I can find it pretty intimidating if I walk into a room knowing that there's going to be my boss, my boss's boss, and my boss's boss's boss there, but I don't have any representation, so I'm just wondering what the procedures are around that. I know that I got an email earlier, so I did, but I'd like to make sure everyone knows what you said.
So we will call Charnel Jones, our HR director, to the podium to answer those questions.
Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, Mayor, council members, city manager, and city attorney. I know you had a question, and my name is Charnel Jones, HR director, about the union representation. And based on the grievances being a confidential matter, they're not allowed to have any other representation there. But if an employee would like for HR to be there to assist them through that process, HR is allowed to be there, as well as any other appropriate city officials or supervisors that's determined to be a part of that appeals process.
Interesting. I just find, maybe I'm wrong, I'm crazy, but I just think that as an employee, if I'm showing a grievance specifically and I'm having a problem, it's really hard to sit in a room with a bunch of city officials and then not feel represented. And I'm not saying specifically union representation, but to have somebody on their side that they can, if it is union representation, that's fine, or if somebody else. I'm just wondering how we go about that. I know you just said HR could be that person.
Human resources, the business partner, is there because typically they are a part of the appeals process, so they're there to assist the employee as well as supervise to make sure that it is running, they're having a fair, equitable process.
Okay. And then if it goes beyond that, that goes to the Civil Services Commission, and then they're able to retain a lawyer?
Yes, ma'am. If it goes to the civil service, then they can have representation at the civil service hearing.
Okay, great. A few other things while you're still here. Part-time employees are exempt from any Raleigh, the civil service.
Correct, and that's based on the Civil Service Act.
So they can't put forth any grievances.
They can still do a grievance, but it will not go up to the Civil Service Commission.
It would not
They're
go to the
exempt from that, yes.
Got it. And then, the other part was the holiday pay for firefighters. That if you can help me understand that a little bit better, because that kind of confused my brain.
Okay. Based on the current policy, any employee that's eligible for holiday pay, they would get holiday premium pay based on their hours worked, and then they would get holiday pay up to the hours of it was capped at 12 hours. Based on the revised policy, an eligible employee that works on a designated holiday, they are eligible to get holiday premium pay based on their normally hours worked, and then they also get holiday pay based on their schedule, normal schedule.
And just to be clear, so that I'm understanding it correctly, we capped it at 12 hours, but firefighters specifically work 16 hours in a day, so they were missing that 4 hours from 8 to 12. I'm just wondering what that.
Firefighters are a little bit unique in the organization in that they may work 24 hours. So depending upon where their hours fall in that holiday would depend upon the holiday premium pay and the holiday pay. But the holiday pay was capped at 12 hours.
Right. And I'm just trying to, because we're changing that now.
Yes, that is. So basically, in a firefighter that works on a holiday, designated holiday, they will get holiday premium pay for the hours that they worked, and then they will get holiday pay for those normal scheduled hours. So that will go beyond the 12 hours.
Right. Because they
Correct.
work from 8 a.m. and then that's what
8,
got that 16
yes.
hours, not the 24 for the holiday pay. And then this has been in effect since 2017. Or has it always been this way?
The leave policy, 300-9A, that you're referring to?
The holiday pay. I don't know which one that is, but it's the holiday pay.
the
prior
last
to this.
version of the holiday pay was effective October 19th of 2021.
Oh, 2021. So I know that I sent you that extra question if there's any possibility for back pay for those that, since we're changing it now from the 12 hours to the 16 hours, it's been that way for either 2 years or longer. If there's a way that we're going to make that right for those that didn't get paid those 4 hours.
So to help Ms. Jones a little bit, and then you can further elaborate, the existing policy that that addresses leave throughout the organization was a policy from 1987. Back in 2017, I think is what you're referencing, is when we did the implementation of the new comp study, and then we looked at some additional correlating policies around that. What we did to address some of the differences, because fire is unique in the way that their hours are established and the way that they're paid. So as Ms. Jones was mentioning a few minutes ago, it's a 24-hour shift, but depending upon the cycle of pay, this is not going to make any sense to you, but depending upon the cycle of pay, it's how many hours on this paycheck versus how many hours on the next paycheck. What we did at that point, it was my recommendation, in fact, that we give them credit for the delayed holiday pay, which was an additional hours that they had never been paid up to that point. And in our further review of all of the policies, and our policies truly date back to 1987 in a lot of regards, this was another thing that we caught, just to clean it up, bring a level of consistency. So if talking about retroactivity, there are some that get paid for 12, although their administrative workday is 8 hours. So are we going to recapture those 4 hours back from those people that get paid for 12 based on how we've currently set it up? So I think there's been adherence to the policy, and we've complied with the policy as written. Cleaning it up this way moving forward, though, any holiday that an employee works, they will get that banked holiday as well as get the holiday premium pay. And in the years past, it was double time and a half, almost triple time and a half. Public safety pay is unique in regards to everybody else in the organization. So I think if we clean it up, if you all approve it today, moving forward, we'll be in a consistent path of paying according to how their designated work day is actually stipulated.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the clarification. I appreciate it. I'm just wondering, as I'm talking, just wanted to ask the questions. The only thing that I'm hesitant on is the employees not having what I see as representation in the grievance procedure. But I hear what you're saying, that it could be HR, but that's just my concern in that. But thank you so much. Thank you for the explanation. I appreciate it.
And to further elaborate on that, as well as the point that the grievance is filed, it sits within the respective departments. So there is a process. At the point that it gets to the manager's office, it's gone through a supervisor and maybe a department head level then. And so there is opportunities. And if the employee still feels like they've been not dealt with in a way and or in a manner that they would think is appropriate, then they have the right in the next step of that grievance procedure to appeal to the manager's office. And I thought 12, 15 years, the city attorney clarified with me this morning that it even predated my predecessor, that's been the MO for a long time. The appeal doesn't go to the city manager, the appeal goes to the city manager's designee. So one of the assistant city managers or the deputy city manager will hear that, and it typically is 2, no more than 3, unless an employee would like for their supervisor to be part of that conversation. So it's not a whole bunch of executive or administrative staff in there and the employee by themselves. Just so to daylight that it's not a whole bunch of people in there. And then at the point that that final decision is made, the employee is then confirmed that they have the authority, if they are privy to the Civil Service Act, to then appeal to the Civil Service Commission. And at that point, you can have whomever you want as part of that proceeding.
In the Civil Service Commission.
Yes,
Got it.
ma'am.
Okay, I appreciate the explanation. I really do. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Do we have a motion?
I motion to approve C6, Human Resource Policies.
Do we have a second? Seconded by Councilmember Patton. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, thank you. All right, next we have the report and recommendation of the Planning Commission.
Good afternoon, Madam Walter, Planning and Development. I also have Chair of the Planning Commission, Blaney Miller, here with us this afternoon to help answer any questions you might have for either one of us. As we think about scheduling public hearings for items coming out of Planning Commission, a reminder about upcoming holidays from the holiday schedule put together for you by the Human Resources Office. We have a handful of items already scheduled for public hearing in August, rezoning items scheduled for public hearing, and then one item scheduled for September. That's 6 already scheduled. And then coming out of Planning Commission, you have a request for extension of review for a case, 2 recommended for public hearing in August, which would put us at 8 public hearings for rezoning, well, a rezoning and a comprehensive plan amendment. We typically don't recommend more than 8 rezoning and comp plan amendments for a given meeting. And then 3 recommended for September 5 public hearing. Also remember those items we schedule for the afternoon meetings tend to be less contentious. We've heard less conversation from the public, the community about them during the Planning Commission and neighborhood meeting process. So I'm going to take these in the order they're on the agenda. This is not how they're batched.
One question before you go. Can you go back to that last slide? Those September 5th ones, are those all the evening ones?
Yes, unless you want to do something different. Yeah. So the first item on the agenda coming out of Planning Commission is a request on West and Harrington Streets. This is adjacent to a request you heard recently. It's just north of the Fairweather, north of South Street. The Planning Commission recommends approval, and we're suggesting a public hearing date of September 5th. We did hear from some Fairweather neighbors in this process. They seem to have had good conversation with the applicant. I think we're in a good place, but have put that on, suggested that for evening nonetheless.
And I just wanted to flag that it looks like the one no vote was actually because the planning commissioner member was not present at the table.
That's correct. We had a couple of votes like that. A commissioner got up to take a call and left the room for,
Got it. So
for
it
2
wasn't-
cases.
Got it.
Yeah, and missed 2
Okay.
votes.
So that's why it was 6-1. Okay.
That's right. The second item on the agenda is a request at Rock Quarry and Diamond Drive. The Planning Commission recommends approval. We're suggesting an evening public hearing date here as well. Ratchford Drive, again, you saw a case, the area in red on this map was a recent case in front of you not too long ago. Again, Planning Commission recommending approval. The no vote there is a commissioner who was away from the table, suggesting a public hearing date of August 15 here. This case at Boylan and Hargett, this is just east of the Joel Lane House, northwest of Y Hill Brewery. Planning Commission is asking for an extension here of their review period. They would like, the applicant has asked for additional time to talk with the neighbors, and Planning Commission is in support of that. So the deadline would be extended from tomorrow to October 4th. Another item on this agenda coming out of Planning Commission is TCZ 1623. Sometimes we call this Midtown Exchange. This is a recommendation for approval here with a public hearing of, suggested public hearing of September 5th. We've heard a lot of online conversation about this request because of the potential removal of condition that would otherwise prohibit a heliport, which is a use that requires a special use permit. And then the final item coming out of Planning Commission is CP 1122. This is an amendment to the comprehensive plan. This is really a housekeeping amendment would put fresh data behind this map that's in the plan, recognizing that we have fresh census data, new information about the criteria that make up the map. So Planning Commission is recommending approval here, and we're suggesting an August 15 public hearing date. The Planning Commission is also requesting authorization to discuss the underlying policy. They understood that the map amendment we were requesting was housekeeping, very much did not have policy impact, but they did want to have further discussion about the policy, the criteria that make up the policy. And we have folks from Housing and Neighborhoods here today if you want to talk a little bit about that. So they're just looking for some authorization to have a deeper conversation about the background policy there. What questions could I answer for you before you take action to set public hearings and other business?
What questions do we have? Councilmember Jones?
Just to recap, and I don't know if my adding was wrong after I put what we did in consent through the annexations and this, that brings our total up for August 15th to 11 cases.
That's
Is that
about right,
correct?
yeah.
It's about 11 cases. That's where I know that we've had some previous talk about it, so I just wanted to make sure we flagged that and see how confident we feel. That's a lot of cases. I know that 3 of them are annexations, but I'd like to just hear what everybody else thinks.
Councilmember Melton?
My thought is we reserve the afternoon public hearings just for things that are really not getting any attention. So if they've made it through the neighborhood meetings and the planning commission and there's not a lot of discord, I would think 11's probably fine because I would assume that there's not going to be a lot of folks signed up opposed or discussion, so I would be fine. I don't think we should probably push it much past that, but for matters that seem to have fully vetted themselves, I think it would be fine. But I definitely don't want to do more, so.
Councilmember Patton?
Yeah, and I would just add, we asked y'all to bring us back some analysis of and some options in the fall, but we also understand like this work needs doing. So I would be comfortable moving forward with this one, understanding that y'all are going to bring us back more information and options soon. So
Yeah, and just for perspective, the meeting after we return from our break is usually pretty heavily loaded, just because we haven't met. So I thought actually today's meeting would be like that too, and it's not. So,
So it's possible.
huh?
So it's possible.
Well, I think that all depends on what we have in the flow of things. And I was referring more to the city manager.
I will do my best.
Thank you. So do we have a motion?
I would be fine accepting all of the recommendations, including the 90-day extension, and letting them also take a deeper look at that policy. So that would be my motion.
Second? Do we have a second? Okay. All in favor? Aye. Who's opposed? So it's 4-3, so that the motion fails. So Councilmember Black, are you opposed? Because I couldn't tell with your.
I am usually, yeah, you usually can't tell, but I was opposed. Do we need to, I was making more of a stand because I kind of agreed with Christina on some of the things, but if we need a 5th vote to get it passed, I also agreed with Megan on it coming back. I didn't realize you weren't going to vote, Christina.
You wanted to be Did you want to change yours?
City Attorney, what
To reconsider.
do we do?
You could move to reconsider and then take the vote after you've agreed that you want to reconsider. So there would be a motion to reconsider, and that would need to pass by 5 votes. And then at that point, you'd make the motion to go forward with the recommendation.
Before we do that, Councilmember Jones, what alternative layout did you want to do?
I know this is the afternoon one, and I'm just wanting to look at what we could possibly do with, we have Hodge Road that day, and I think that one's going to be big.
Which one?
Hodge Road.
Oh.
I mean, that's the big one, the 500 acres. So I feel like that one's going to be a big one. So I'm wondering, are there anything that we could push off for the afternoon session in September? But
Moving some from the 15th afternoon to the
Afternoon.
September afternoon?
right, something that's because this is just one, I understand that in our first meetings, we have an afternoon
Yeah.
that we don't have in the second one. But
Could you move
I don't
any
know.
of those, Bynum, from the 15th of August to September 5th afternoon?
So we're only recommending 2 for the 15th today, so you could certainly move these to the 5th if you would like.
But we had 3 in consent that were annexations. So could we not move the annexations?
I think you would have to
Oh, we'd have
consult
to
with the city
reopen them.
attorney
I
on
see.
that.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's right. Never mind.
If we move these two, how does that impact the applicants on these? Well, one is our policy, I think.
Right, so you'd have 6 rezonings, and the annexations you've already scheduled, and then you could move Ratchford and the staff-initiated comprehensive plan amendment to September 5th.
Is anyone here from Ratchford? They're
I
going to care
would-
about a 2-week delay.
I
But
would
Mary, are
feel-
you changing are you okay with it? If we retake the vote, will you be a yes?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then I don't think you need to move anything. I think we just need to retake
So,
the vote.
motion.
All right, then I move to reconsider.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I move to adopt the,
Was anyone opposed?
Still here, but
Okay. Councilmember Jones opposed. Motion,
I move to adopt the Bynum's recommendations.
do we have a second? All in favor? Aye. Okay, that was 5-3 with, and Councilmember Jones opposed.
5-1.
5-1, sorry. Next, thank you. Next, we have special items.
So good afternoon, Mayor, City Council members, and City Manager. I'm Sadia Sitar, Director of Budget and Management Services here at the City of Raleigh. When we last met on June 20th, City Council had requested 5 organizations to receive council contingency funds from fiscal year 23 council contingency funding. And today, I will be running through these organizations with you. Wanted to share that at the moment, we have about $45,500 in council contingency. And if these 5 items were to be approved, we would end fiscal year 23 with $25,000 remaining in council contingency. So just a quick run through, we had about 5 organizations, as I mentioned, that council had requested using council contingency funding for. 2, which were Arise Collective and Fruit of Labor World Cultural Center, were requested by Councilmember Black. 2, which are Amir Institute and Advanced Community Health, were requested by Mayor Pro Tem Branch, and Councilmember Jones requested looking into council contingency for Yeshua's Way. So in the table that you see, we have listed for you the organization's registration status, whether they are registered with the Secretary of State here in North Carolina, as well as with the IRS. So we noticed discrepancies in 2 organizations. So Fruit of Labor World Culture Center is not registered either with the state or with the IRS. And then we also noted that Amir Institute is a nonprofit that is registered in Durham. So we need to confirm if they do operate here in Raleigh before we were to distribute those funds. The attachment to the council contingency items provides you as well as residents with some additional explanation on what the funding will be used for. So thank you for assisting budget with providing us with that information. And happy to have answer any questions that you may have. Of course, if we do proceed with approval for this council contingency, budget is going to work with finance to ensure that we disperse the funding as quickly as possible.
Councilmember Harrison?
I'd also like to resubmit my request for $15,000 of funding for Equity Before Birth. This is the triangle-based group that provides support to eliminate financial barriers that families experience when seeking pregnancy-related care. They have provided clarification that they comply with the city's required non-discrimination grant provision. So there are no outstanding legal concerns. I just want to confirm, is that correct, Dottie?
Yes, ma'am, it is, and I did speak with the executive director.
Great, thank you so much. And I also want to note that any funds received from the City of Raleigh for Equity Before Birth would be spent for City of Raleigh residents. To date, 50% of who they serve live in Raleigh.
So is that a motion
Yeah.
to add this? Can we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so that is added to this list. I do know that Council, Mayor Pro Tem Branch said that for the Emmer Institute, that the motion would be that any funding would have to be spent in Raleigh. So he asked me to convey that. Councilmember Melton?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, he also sent us all an email from the executive director that they did sign a permanent location in Raleigh on April 1st on Garner Road. They were founded in Raleigh. They were in Durham during the pandemic, and now they're back in Raleigh. So I think I just wanted to put that on the record too.
Thank you. Okay, and I do have one, I'm sorry, Councilmember Patton.
Yeah, I just had a question about, I see that you flagged their, their registration status. Do they have to be registered with the Secretary of State and the IRS to receive funding?
That is my understanding, yes.
Okay, so the fruit of labor listed here is not eligible.
So we will be working. We're going to reach out to them again to see if they are. So we'll try our best to make sure that that is happening. And if we, have any hurdles in the process, we'll reach out to you, Councilmember Black.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It's such a wonderful space, and they do a lot of really great things for, specifically in our like kind of shared little district area that provides such a wonderful space for people to meet and be in collective with each other. So if you need help with me helping to facilitate the conversations or like bring people together, I can help with that with outreach. And we were talking about it. We weren't sure if that particular item as far as registration status would hinder them from being able to get contingency. So thank you for that clarity.
Okay, appreciate it.
Okay. I'm going to bring up another consideration, but it would be for the next contingency. Let's deal with this first.
So with that, with the equity before birth, that brings $15,000. That brings us down to $5,000 still left in contingency.
10.
We have 10
Oh, it was 25. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm looking at this. It was 10,000. I did, when I was reading through the materials in the ARPA funding, we did the arts stuff. So we did a lot of like Carolina Ballets in there. And there was only one organization that wasn't funded, and that was the African American Cultural Arts Week. And I'm wondering, since we have some extra money in here, is it possible, since they're the only arts thing, to not be funded? Is that still available or of interest to anyone?
So let me understand, are you talking about the African American Cultural Festival?
Yes, the festival. It's the only thing that wasn't funded in that. From the materials that we got sent over this last week, they were showing us everything of the ARPA funds and they had $300,000 and it was spent, and that was the only organization they couldn't fund.
And Ms. Sattar, you can verify this, but I think they're funded through other grant opportunities through the city, so that might have been one of the reasons why they did not get funded through that ARPA solicitation. But let's verify. We have been a strong funder of that festival for years and years.
No, and I'm not judging it.
So
Like,
let
it was
me-
$300,000,
Yeah.
and if it was spent, it's spent. But since it was just one, whether it's that or a different organization, and we have this extra money, is there a way that we could still cover it so that everything can still happen? I guess is my question or thought.
So you may recall at the last meeting or the meeting before last, we also talked when Ms. Hinton talked about doing some additional surveying and community engagement. I think it was the mayor that posed, could we use to pay for that survey more broadly administered some of the contingency? And we waited to see what the total amount would be, and we have some options. So
Yeah, just throwing stuff on the
Okay.
table. Not to say that that's what I want to do. I'm just saying, hey, these are other little things that are kind of hanging on from this last fiscal year.
okay.
No, that's be great too.
So yes, so I'm pretty sure, Sadia, if you'll kind of verify that.
I will definitely
With the
do that.
African American Cultural Festival, I do think they do get funding from us. And then if so, then if you all are comfortable, we could kind of move that 10,000 forward for Ms. Hinton's effort to do some additional targeted engagement.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
So are we holding this then?
Up to you all. What do you?
No, that's fine. I was just
saying
saying
who
who
was
was interested. But
All right, do we have a motion then?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, that was unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
So the item I had received information and a request from Oak City Cares. Since the formation of the Oak City Outreach Center in 2014, council has granted them $74,444 to run their weekend meals program for people. That then transitioned over to Oak City Cares when they moved into their building. Their cost have increased dramatically over that time. And in 2022, 2023, cost went to $331,593. They also have, a lot of that has to do with inflation, the increased cost of food, but also they are now coordinating efforts among 80 nonprofits. So that has changed dramatically over time as well. They're now averaging about 450 people per weekend, and they've seen a 48% increase. So they have asked if we would consider funding them an extra $25,000. So I'm going to ask that this be brought back to us, and I will get that data sheet to all of you. But I was going to ask that it be brought back to us at our August 15th meeting for consideration. And that would come out of the new contingency fund.
Cool. If any information gets circulated to us, could it include how much and where we already are granting them funding? I think they get some grants and stuff from us, right?
We can do that. We can provide that in the backup.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay. All right, next we have our city manager. You're up.
So, good afternoon, Mayor and Council. No real item on the agenda. However, I would like to kind of bring you all up to speed on where we are on deliberations and negotiations of the 23rd Amendment to the Interlocal Agreement. I will remind you that back in 1991, the General Assembly gave special authority through an enabling legislation for Wake County and the city of Raleigh to talk about how we would fund economic development, tourism opportunities moving forward out of some of the tax revenues that were collected on hospitality through hotel night stays and prepared food and beverages. Each of those opportunities have brought forward some funding opportunities where projects throughout Wake County have been funded. And during the pandemic, we had to kind of shut the model down because there wasn't enough funding to be able to add new projects. We reopened that model in the latter part of 2022 with the anticipation that we would be able to make some funding recommendations according to the legislation by July 1, 2023. So today's July 5th, and we do not have any funding recommendations as we have not been able to get to a negotiated compromise on what those funding levels should look like for those projects that we have brought forward to you on a couple of occasions at this point. However, I'm truly hopeful. We have a meeting scheduled for tomorrow afternoon with some leadership in Wake County that we can hopefully bring back something that will be at a point of approval for both the Wake County County Commission and the Raleigh City Council in August. The county manager and I really hope to be able to bring forward something to be in compliance, total compliance, but we're not there yet, and we're continuing to talk, and hopefully, again, fingers crossed, we'll get there tomorrow. But if not, until we reach some agreement on what the funding recommendations will be moving forward, we will still operate in the 22nd Amendment. So the funding allocations that have been appropriated for the last time the model was open, we will still operate. Just will be no additional funding and resources for any new projects to be brought forward. So I just wanted to make you all aware of that because I told you that we were going to hopefully bring a funding recommendation to you guys. And as part of that engagement process, we have to have a stakeholders meeting. And as soon as we get some resolution on the issue, we will have that stakeholders meeting as well, just so that the impacted public and agencies will also have a better understanding of the proposed projects, the why behind the proposed projects, and how that funding is allocated. So this one's been a little bit longer than most, and partially I can think we can attribute it to COVID kind of threw some things out of symmetry, and so now we're trying to bring it back forward. And as you all know, there are some medium projects that we hear from on a regular basis, to include our Dix Parks Conservancy as one of those medium projects that were slated to be funded, in addition to the racket facility that we've talked about on multiple occasions, swing as well. So I'm hopeful that we can close the 23rd Amendment so that we can get geared up for the 24th Amendment and hopefully bring back some of those medium projects. Because again, ultimately the model is to fund economic and tourism opportunities to bring people here to be able to add quality of life amenities to our great community.
Any questions? Councilmember Patton?
Thanks for the update. Just a logistical one, as we are about to go on recess and planning our own lives. Is there a thought that there would be a special meeting, given the timeline, or would we just see this again in August?
No, we will bring it, we'll recommend that we bring it back in August. Schedules and calendars are difficult during the summer, and everybody will be going on break, the county as well as the city this week. So probably would behoove all of us to take a minute. And there's some ongoing conversations that sort of kind of align with what those funding recommendations are that have not been tied up either. And so I think this gives us a little bit longer runway to be able to bring both of those things forward and be in a better position to make some responsible funding recommendations.
Oh, thanks.
So no, we're not going to interrupt your vacation. Enjoy your vacation.
Councilmember Harrison?
Thanks so much, Marshall, for that update. I know that we are not able to spend these funds on housing, affordable housing, for example, but I am aware of communities across the country that do use these dollars from the beverage and hotel tax for tourism, workforce housing. And so I was just curious if I could get a manager's update on just the exact kind of legal stipulations or requirements on these funds and how they can be used, so that I have that information. And if you've already provided it to me, Dottie, I'm going to say thank you.
No, and I actually have that information available in chart form. It's very specific. The legislation dictates the way that the funds can be used, and they do not allow workforce housing. That's a question I think that's been posed previously and would require legislative action. But I'd certainly be glad for our office to provide a copy of my chart and also just a general summary.
That would be great. I knew you already had it, so thank you so much. This is a large pot of money, and obviously there's a lot of need always in the housing space, so I'd like to better understand what are our opportunities there and how we can, promote that vision. So thanks.
Absolutely. And that concludes my report today. Stay cool. It
That's
is
one of the
so
shortest reports you've ever had.
I
Thank
know.
you.
I'm trying to get you all off on your vacation in a good way.
All right, next we have the report of the Hispanic and Immigrant Affairs Board. Dr. Hamilton?
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor, Madam City Manager, distinguished council members, and city attorney. I am Dr. Artina Hamilton, the Director of the Department of Equity Inclusion. It's my pleasure to present Andrea Langlois, who will be presenting the Hispanic and Immigrant Affairs Board report and plan for fiscal year 24.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hamilton, and thanks for making the time for me today. We are so excited to move forward with our work plan, so we wanted to make sure to get here lickety-split. All right, so as I said, I'm Andrea Langlois. I'm here because I am currently the community chair of the Hispanic and Immigrant Affairs Board, so that's why I'm presenting today. This is just a great quote. Remember always that all of you, all of us, you and I especially, are descended from immigrants and revolutionists. So I want to start off by thanking y'all and whoever was involved in the process of making the format for the work plan for this upcoming year. It has really streamlined our processes as far as planning as a board, and so it's something that was very much appreciated and I think allows us the latitude in order to pivot to meet the needs of our community as they occur. So we are very excited about that. So we'll go on to speak on some of our accomplishments that we achieved this past year. Some of the things that we were able to do this past year with regards to the goals that we have also brought up for this year is increasing economic mobility. Some of that you guys may have attended was our economic development panels, which have continued to be successful, and we're looking forward to adding more of those sorts of goals this year because they are now well trusted and we have those community connections who can better inform our communities. And so for this upcoming year, we'd like to engage communities in togetherness, educate City Council on social justice issues affecting our communities, and advocating or reducing or eliminating barriers even for those communities. And then something that has been especially important as we're working through this as a relatively new board is increasing access both internally in our board and externally pertaining to issues and events from immigrant communities. So again, that new format for this work plan I think gives us the latitude to do so. So events for this year, like we said, another economic development business panel. Those have typically the people on those panels have typically been community leaders from those immigrant communities. And so for this upcoming year, we hope for it to be in a local school. This past year, we kind of shifted it and we put it into the actual businesses where immigrant communities typically congregate. So we had one at a lounge in Raleigh, and so that was great for that. And then upcoming is something that we have been wanting to accomplish for a few years is the International Unity Day, celebrating diverse countries and communicate to a wider Raleigh. We have a really great member on our board who has an incredible presence in the African nation community, so they have been able to plan events, especially as of recently. It was just this last month. They had a soccer event where different African nations were able to compete for a soccer tournament. And I think you actually may have seen the photo earlier of them holding up the big trophy that was from this past year. So she really has this great connections there, and she really is the one who's spearheading this diverse Unity Day with that support from that community. So wanting to bring in even more nations into celebrations such as that. So for this year, we also would like to offer resources for families and children going back to school in immigrant populated areas. You may have heard them as backpack buddies. We don't want to stay married to that exact format, but following a similar format to serve our communities in the upcoming school year. And then one of the things we're also excited about for this year is the Immigrant Impact Award Dinner, the first one. One of the things we realized in our work as a board is recognizing the impact of organizations that already exist and highlighting them. We don't want to reinvent the wheel. We want to highlight and support those leaders that are already doing that work. So there are some strategies and evaluation and community engagement we'd like to engage for this year. So we would like to continue to share those community events internally and then explore possible strategies for communicating internally via specific channel. So we're looking actively at what the best way to do that is, whether that's utilizing a different platform. That a lot of our communities communicate through WhatsApp, so seeing if there's any compatibility there, as well as permanently including community events as part of the engagement portion of our meetings. We've started to put that as part of our agendas, and that has been some of the most, I think, productive part of pushing forward work as a board and even externally. And hey, we're all communities leaders on this board. How can we better support each other to make these events happening? Again, people who are already doing the work, how do we support that and come together to do it? Also, taking inventory of city resources for those events and exploring a calendar of events from our board. And then exploring methods of internally evaluating effective current and past strategies and goals. That's something that has come about from our economic development panel events. Some of them have had a lot more engagement than others, so we're coming together with a communication plan about, hey, how do we get that same level of engagement across the different communities we're trying to reach? Because, for example, once we were advertising to the local Hispanic radios, and that was extremely successful, and that event had a lot of engagement from that particular community. So it's how can we evaluate what we're doing and make it even better. And then exploring strategies for including communities in the diaspora, because those communities are often not thought of internally and externally when we're talking about immigrant communities, but it is very important to us. In fact, one of the events that we did this past week, was it past week? 2 weeks ago. as part of our engagement into that discussion and engaging in community discussions, we were able to support the opening of Liberation Bookstore in downtown Raleigh, the first Black-owned children's bookstore in the state of North Carolina. So we were able to engage with several communities that day. Wow, that was a great day for just having people even walking the streets and invited into different events in Raleigh. So being able to share what we do, people were offering us resources about how they can support our work. So we're really digging into how we can better have those communities as a part of our discussions and events. So this budget is so streamlined, I can hardly believe it. So thank you again for this formatting. So for wider board communication needs, and of course we do have a further breakdown of this, especially since we've had to do similar things for our past budgets, but we do have a high level of communication needs due to having differing languages that are of course present in our communities. So interpretation and translation is a huge part of that, making that happen through print materials and promotional services. Some of the swag we were able to hand out at our last event was particularly popular and great at getting the word out. I think I actually brought my canvas bag that says Hispanic and Immigrant Affairs Board Raleigh. Very popular and great for getting the word out, just simply. We also would like to continue sponsoring and hosting events similar to what we did a couple weekends ago. Not recreate the work, support the work, and elevate the work that is already happening. Also going towards renting space and catering for those events, funds to support those events, and speaker fees. One of the things we were able to accomplish this last year was get a training internally about immigrant communities historically in the United States, and so that has further supported our knowledge. Even though we are community leaders, we may not be aware of every aspect of course, the immigrant communities that exist, particularly in Raleigh. So keeping up to date is something that is important for us as a board in all of our goals. So that totals out to that figure you see right there, and we hope we will get your support for this upcoming year to continue doing great work. Do y'all have any questions?
I don't have a question, but I do have a comment.
Sure.
This board was born during COVID, which presented challenges, but I will say in the past, 18 months, I've seen some real progress, and I want to say thank you, first off, for elevating the whole discussion within the city about translation services. That is critical in our communications. But I've also attended several of your economic development events, and they have been amazing. So I just want to say keep up the great work.
Thank you so much. That is very much appreciated. And anyone of the City Council and, of course, wider Raleigh community is welcome to attend. We do have the best food, I will say.
Councilmember Patton.
Yeah, I also wanted to say thank you. It's been a privilege to liaise with your board. Y'all are doing really great work for the communities, and I know that about half the board has a professional tie to the communities too, and so just working on it all the time. So thank you for that. I wanted to also ask one of the early parts of your work plan is to educate us on council, which I welcome because I certainly don't know everything. But I was curious if you had strategies in mind for how you would do that.
Yes, so I think that part of that is inherent to our communications subcommittee. So again, thanks so much for this streamlined work plan so that we can get this put together. But we are working actively on a communications plan for both internal and external work. So I think inherent to that is going to be how do we inform wider city council about the specific needs we have, because it changes very quickly. I think the pandemic was a lesson in how much you have to pivot and do it quickly if you're actually going to achieve a need. So that is part of the planning process we're creating now, evaluating what do we have access to, what do we need to improve in order to get those needs met. Thank you for that question.
Any other questions? Okay, do we have a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, thank you.
so
That was
much.
unanimous. Thank you so much. Next, we have the report of the Parks, Recreation, and Greenway Advisory Board.
Good afternoon, Mayor and members of Raleigh City Council. I am Stephen Bentley, Director of Raleigh Parks. We have 2 items for you today. With me is Vice Chair Chris Pereira. He is going to cover the fiscal year 24 work plan, and that'll be followed by a staff presentation on a greenway project along Mine Creek. So without further ado, I'll ask Vice Chair Pereira to come up. Thank you.
Thanks, Stephen. As Stephen mentioned, first we're going to talk about our work plan. One thing I wish we had added was better food after hearing the previous presentation. And then we'll talk about the board's recommendation on the Mine Creek project that Lisa Schiffbauer is going to talk more about. This year we tried to take a little bit of a different approach to the work plan. We gathered feedback from the entire board, and we had a subcommittee that was formed temporarily for creating the work plan. Had 4 members. And really, we tried to focus on the council priorities that we've seen that you guys are working on, as well as the city's strategic plan and making sure that our work plan aligns with that. And after about a month of work putting this together and getting feedback, the plan was unanimously adopted on June 15th, which was our last board meeting. So our first goal, I'll just kind of hit the high points here, but if you guys have questions, I can go back and cover things, is focusing on the bond implementation. Obviously, the Parks bond was a huge step forward for our city, and it's going to keep us busy this entire year. So our focus is really looking at the bond and seeing what we can do to implement it across the board, help city staff get projects going as quickly as possible, so that the city can see some progress that comes out of the bond. Second goal aligns with our name. It's to focus on greenways. There's obviously been a lot of focus on the safety of our greenways, so looking at things that we can do to help the city embrace the greenway system. Some of the suggestions that have been made are better signage, better detours, better safety, precautions that we can take to increase and I guess return the city's confidence in the greenway system. And we're going to be continuing our collaboration with BPAC on that. Goal 3 is trees. There's obviously a lot of development going on in the city. A lot of the concern, rightfully so, is about the defoliation that we tend to see, a lot of trees going away. There's obviously a lot of focus on that within the city staff, but we are trying to kind of make sure that we have continued city input and citizens have input on maintaining that tree coverage that we have for the city. Goal 4 is sustainability. That's a newer aspect of the board that we've been focused on the past few years. As you guys already know, that we've entered the Biophilic Cities program. We're going to continue our membership there. We're going to try to increase our biophilic presence. We're also going to encourage the use of green infrastructure for the time being, just within parks infrastructure that we have. And goal 5 is organizational. It's really to try to realign the board to be able to respond better and in closer lockstep with city staff, so that we're getting input and we're being able to provide input both to city council as well as to park staff. So we are maintaining this diversity, equity, and inclusion goal that we carried over from last year, and then also helping the city staff with the department's accreditation process. Goal 6 is volunteerism. I think we do a pretty good job of that, and I know that we have an outstanding date with City Council to do a volunteer program. That's still, I think, in the works to put on the calendar in the future. But we'd also like to continue working with city staff. City staff's been great in planning several of these events in the past where we've shown up and we've worked with them on volunteer events, but also opening it up to more people in the city so that people can volunteer as part of the Parks and Greenway network that we have. So thank you, and please let me know if there's any questions.
Councilmember Jones?
Hi, Chris. How are you?
I'm good.
It's good to see you. Those are a great work plan, great goals. My question is, how are these goals associated with a committee? Do these go to the specific committees? How do you plan to make sure that these are on track for every meeting?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good question. So we have 2 permanent committees, the Greenway Committee and the
SWAT?
SWAT. Yep, exactly. Thank you. And the other committees are more ad hoc. Parks Committee, when you were on the board, used to be a permanent committee. Now we've tried to approach it as an entire board project, so every board meeting tends to be a park subcommittee meeting. So for the volunteer aspect, you guys saw that the Fred Fletcher Award was on the agenda again. That's another ad hoc committee that we do, so that focuses on that. And really, the rest of these goals are going to be something that we tackle all together. So the Greenway, obviously the Greenway items will be tackled in Greenway ad hoc meetings, volunteer work, Fred Fletcher Committee, as well as other as appropriate ad hoc committees that get formed. But everything else is something that we're tackling as a board all together. For the Greenway, for the bond implementation, that's one thing that we've done. It's not really a subcommittee implementation. It's something that we've worked on getting a volunteer list of members of the board to start attending community meetings with members of the community. So that's something that's going to happen on basically varying timelines depending on the project from the bond and when that pops up.
And then just a follow-up question to that is so now it's 2 committees instead of the 4, and the other ones are ad hoc, from what I understand.
Yeah.
Cool. That's awesome. Just from personal experience, I just want to know how is your attendance at committee meetings? If that's where the work is getting done, I know that when I was on the board, there was a struggle to get people to come to committee meetings. So I just want to see what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the reasons why we've gone down to 2 subcommittees. It's been hard to get people to attend 4 different meetings, and a lot of times, and you probably remember this from your experience, the members that are the most active tend to be the same members. And if they're not on a subcommittee, we've had issues in the past having quorums at those meetings. So keeping Greenway, members of the board always tend to be worked up about Greenway issues, so we tend to get pretty good attendance at those meetings. And Fred Fletcher, everybody comes out in full force for those. For parks items, it's easier to just keep quorum when we have them as a overall board.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you for your work.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, guys. Any other questions?
Councilmember Patton?
Hi, good to see you.
Good
It's
to see
also
you
been a
too.
privilege to liaise your board. It's okay.
Thank you.
My favorite board's day. Sorry, no offense, other boards. You're also great. Thank you for your service to the city. Number 5, organizational goal. I see that you mentioned promoting DE&I in the park system, and I was curious if your board has had brainstorms about how you might do that, strategies you might use to approach that.
Yeah, I don't think we really have. It's something that we've mentioned, but we want it to be more than a buzzword. So we know that city staff works on these things, but if you guys have examples that you guys have seen that were successfully implemented on other boards, I think we'd really be open to hearing how you guys did that and what we can kind of look out for to make sure that we're still doing that.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, good work.
Okay.
Do we have a motion to approve the work plan?
Move to approve the work plan.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, that was unanimous. Thank you. Keep up the
Okay.
great work.
Absolutely, thank you. The next item that I think Stephen is going to pull up right now is the recommendation by the board concerning the Mine Creek Improvement Project. So we took a really long time to go over this and to focus on it. But in the end, our recommendation is to approve the realignment of Mine Creek Trail. So you guys may be aware of the background, but Mine Creek Trail, it's one of the oldest stretches off the Greenway. It's in Council District A. It's just south of Shelley Lake, south of Millbrook Road. And the original alignment has 2 different bridges that cross Mine Creek. The recommendation, the idea for the realignment is that instead of crossing the creek twice, it would stay on the same side of the creek. The board took a lot of time to look over this. There were a lot of big issues. One of the issues was obviously this new realignment puts the trail closer to a community. And then the second one was more environmental. It's going to chop down a lot of trees that are in that area. So looking at those issues, looking at a lot of the other issues, the board recommended the realignment. The reason for that was twofold. One is that obviously a lot of the greenways come really close to communities, even though we sympathize with the communities that were upset and objected to the realignment. Obviously, the original alignment still is closer to certain communities. And really, we believe that the plan to move forward, which is still in flux and city staff is working on it, to basically protect the privacy and the security of those individuals is going to go a long way to addressing those concerns. And then for the environmental factor, there's a sewer alignment that's also going to be happening. And that's going to result in, even if we had kept the original alignment, those trees are going to get cleared out. It's going to be a pretty comparable number. I think Lisa can probably give you guys more specifics when it comes to how many trees. But basically, to us, the environmental issue was essentially a wash, no matter which option we went with. And then this option 1, going with the realignment, is really going to help the system altogether a lot better because the bridges require a lot of maintenance. Whenever there's floods, whenever we get big hurricanes, that tends to reduce I would say the efficacy of the infrastructure. It damages the bridges. They're expensive to maintain and to replace. So reducing the number of bridges in the Greenway system is ultimately going to help us be more cost effective and make bond dollars and budget dollars go further. So is most of this Lisa items? Do you want to take over? Okay. Yeah.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Chris, for that introduction. Good afternoon, Madam Mayor and council members. Lisa Schiffbauer with Raleigh Parks. I'm a senior engineering supervisor. So Chris did go over a lot of the history there. Just to orient everyone here for where the location of the project is, it's just south of Shelley Lake, north of I-440. This connection, this Greenway Trail, Mine Creek Trail, is a major connection that connects Shelley Lake to Crabtree Creek. It's an important north-south connection. The project consists of improvements to address the 2H structures that are in that location where the red circle is, and the need to replace those structures was identified prior to 2009 due to the high use of the trail and the overall age condition of the structures. The structures and trail in this location were built in the late 1970s. They are timber, 8 feet wide, which is less than our standard of Greenway bridges now, which is 10 feet wide, and concrete. So this project does have a lot of history. In 2009, there were engagement efforts, which resulted in the decision to maintain those structures in place by the Parks Board at that time. In 2014, there was funding established in the Parks Bond for $210,000 to help make those improvements. In 2015, there was another evaluation and engagement effort, which again resulted in the Parks Board decision to maintain in the current alignment. So there are events that have guided the department to engage in efforts once again to look at the realignment. We've had major weather events in 2016 and 2018, Hurricane Matthew, Hurricane Florence, Tropical Storm Michael. I think 2018 was the wettest year in Raleigh since 1996. And so we had a lot of Greenway system resiliency issues. There were large sections of Crabtree Creek that were shut down for a long time, and it took substantial time to get those sections rehabilitated. Since then, we adopted our design guidelines for Greenway. We also adopted the Greenway Master Plan, which has a focus on system resiliency and safety. And there are also floodplain regulation changes. So these are the two options. Both are shown here. Option one being on the southeast side of Mine Creek, and option two following an existing sewer easement and closer to the Ridgelock community. I'll go over the details of alignment option 1 and 2 individually. So some of the pros here for keeping the existing alignment would be that it is existing a Greenway easement and property owned in fee simple by the city of Raleigh. There may be a need for acquisition in this location that it would be yet to be determined. Some cons associated with replacing the trail in place would be safety. Currently, there are more transitions crossing the bridges with sharp radii and less clear sight lines. Significant tree removal, resiliency. We're talking about the resiliency of the system. So there's a lot of stream bank issues currently that are there, and that would have to be attended to help stabilize replacement structures, increased long-term maintenance cost. There's a lot more permitting to do if you were to keep the trail in this place. And then the project estimate is estimated between 1.5 and 1.7 million. So this is an image that's showing the existing trail and the existing structures. And the X's are trees that we have surveyed that are 8-inch in diameter at breast height or greater. So there are approximately 37 trees, and then all of the smaller trees too, that would have to be removed in order to replace the trail and structures in that location. You can see here, these are pictures of the existing structures and existing trail. You can see how close pine trees. You can see the condition of the stream bank, which would have to be addressed if putting the trail back in its place. So this is some images of projects that we've currently or recently completed. And these are the type of structures that we would place back. The existing structures that are there, like I said, are timber. That is an older style of stick-built construction. And this is the current example of what you see in our system. These structures have a long lifespan made of Corten steel and also concrete decking. So these are just some images of what, if the structures were to be replaced, what the bridges would look like. And there was a lot of discussion about wanting to keep the existing structures looking like they currently are. So this here is an image, a map showing in the very light gray on this map, you can see the existing trail. And I'll highlight that for you. So this is the existing trail here and the structures. And what you see to the south of that on this map is the sewer easement, and the X's are the trees that would be removed as part of the sewer project that is currently simultaneously going on with the improvements that we're proposing here. On the north side of the creek, you'll see the additional part of the sewer project. On that side, that pipe will be sleeved, and then the part you see in purple and blue, that easement, that pipe is completely being replaced. So this image really is just to show you the additional trees that would be removed as part of the sewer. So option 2, this is realigning to the sewer easement closer to the Ridgelock community. This is the orange alignment here. So with this alignment, you have better site visibility, less tree removal, better maintenance access. The one con associated with this, we only currently have a sewer easement. So with that, we would have to acquire a greenway easement associated with the realignment. These are some built examples in the Raleigh Greenway system where the trail is closer to communities and existing structures. So this is the alignment option number 2, showing the realignment. You can see the existing structures and the existing trail are shown on here. You can see where the existing sewer easement is. Showing here also is the distances that are currently established between the existing structure and the Ridgelock community and the trail itself. And another important thing here is showing where that proposed fence would be located. It's the blue line with the arrow there pointing proposed fence line. And here are some pictures too of the existing townhomes in the Ridgelock community, the existing sewer easement where we're proposing to relocate the trail. You can see the clearing, the clear path. Essentially, that would be where the trail would be located. So here's a comparison of alignment option 1 and 2, just showing this difference between these items on the left, easement acquisition, user safety and experience, the impacts to trees, the stream impact, permitting requirements, long-term maintenance access, and then the difference in project cost. So we did receive a lot of community feedback from the Ridgelock community with a list of their concerns of safety and security. They're concerned about the proximity to the homes, private use of their private streets, aesthetics of fencing. We talked a lot about what that fencing would look like and how we can make the appearance of that very nice and attractive. We talked about maintenance and whether or not the city or the homeowners would be responsible for the maintenance of the fence and just general cleanup associated with the greenway. Those were concerns of theirs. They had concerns about any community expense, such as having to add security cameras to their back porches to help observe what was going on in their backyards. Of course, greenway acquisition, any other property impacts, potentially with people coming into the neighborhood, parking, environmental impacts. There is a section of area behind the townhomes that stays pretty wet, and their concern was that would be made worse. And we talked about how improvements could be made to the community to help with that. So here again is a list of some of those concerns that they had. Safety, security, and just visual aesthetics. On the right-hand side, we proposed some fencing ideas that could help with screening. Would be an 8-foot tall fence. This fence isn't the typical fence that you see within our greenway system. You typically would see a vinyl separation fence, not necessarily a visual screening. And so we're willing to work with the community on making this more attractive. As far as the greenway acquisition, we would update our assessment of the evaluation of acquiring that easement and work with the community on fair market value. So some of the next steps that we are be working towards is advancing the design of alignment option 2, which is to realign the trail to the northwest side of Mine Creek. Along with that, we would remove the structures that are currently there and also the existing trail that is between the two structures. We'll continue to work with the adjacent community and address concerns that they have on things like fencing, design, landscape features, signage, and the easement acquisition, as I mentioned. And then in the fall of this year, we will bring that 60% design back to City Council for your review and approval of that project design. And at that time, we will potentially look for authorization for easement condemnation if we're unable to negotiate an agreement directly with the Ridgelock community. And that is it. So I'll take any questions.
Councilmember Harrison.
Yeah, thank you so much for that presentation. We've heard a lot about this project, so it was helpful. I was curious, you had mentioned that option 2 would be slightly closer to residential structures, anywhere from 38 to 69 feet away. What is the current distance for the option 1 from those structures? Do you know?
It's a little bit, so the option 1, let me go to that. So this one right here, it is a little bit further. I want to say it was between 50 and 70 feet within that range, depending on the structure. And you can see it really only backs up to 3 residential structures before having to cross the creek back to the other side.
Okay. And in terms of the cost for option 2, the 525 to 600K, is that considering what you think the cost is going to be of the greenway easement and acquiring the property?
That can range. I would say that this cost estimate accommodates for what the last appraisal was, which was a few years ago, which is about $100,000. So that obviously would have to be updated and then considered as part of this estimate.
Okay, so it could be another, I'm just going to say 100K perhaps for that.
Potentially.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Patton.
Hi.
Thank you for all the time you've put into this. I know we've been on a site visit, like all these maps required research. One question I had about that easement acquisition, I know the HOA also owns property in this space there. And do we know if the funds will go to the HOA organization or to the individual homeowners?
I have tried to find an answer to that, to answer your question. That is not sure. I think it's embedded in the covenants, and I think we'll have to do some more legal research on that.
Got it. Okay.
But in the past, with other HOAs that we have acquired easements from, those funds were distributed to each resident, but that was specifically how that particular covenant was written.
Any other questions? Councilmember Black?
Hi. So, fun fact, this was actually the first thing that I was ever introduced to as a city councilor before I was even sworn in. So I have been aware about what's been happening in this community since, November of last year. And a lot of the questions and the concerns that I felt came from the community was around safety with, the rise in attacks on the greenways and just being an older community with a lot of the houses don't cost as much as across the side of the creek. So they felt like they were one of the last few remaining affordable communities in District A that are being needlessly pinpointed for something that can cause safety issues. And I know you guys talked a lot about safety of the creek, or not the creek, the trail itself. And one of the things that I asked a few months ago was just for really thoughtful deliberations and communication with the Ridge Lot community, with the 14 lots that are going to be directly impacted by the realignment, because it is really close to their backyards. You can see directly in. I know safety is a concern as far as when we're thinking about building the trail, but it's also a concern for the people who are living along the trails. So I'm really glad that you guys have had some conversation. I'm hoping that it can continue to go well as you thinking about the size of the fencing, not necessarily just the aesthetic of it, but also how operational it is and how safe people feel with people less than 50 yards from their back porch. So that was pretty much it. I just wanted to note that I saw that she had some community engagement. And then the question I guess I had was, for maintenance of the fence area, is that going to be covered by the city, or is that a...
Yes, we will plan to overtake maintenance. We will locate the fence within the easement that we require, and then that therefore would require us to be the ones that are maintaining it, whatever maintenance would be associated with that particular fence. Different fences have different requirements for maintaining. But yes, the plan is to whatever landscaping material that potentially could be that we can work with Raleigh Water on, which be, lower ground cover type of materials, we would maintain any improvements whatsoever that would be located within that area.
Okay, good. That's good to hear. I'm just, excited to see more of what the plan's going to look like within the next, I think you said a few months. You'll have 60% done.
Yes.
Hopefully, fingers crossed. See, I saw
Yes.
the sigh.
Yes, and we will, as we work through the design, we will continue to work with the community on those different design features and try to come up with something that works mutually.
Great. I thank you. I know it's been really challenging from kind of the beginning of this, and it's been a really long process. So thank you. Thank you for your presentation. Thank you for your work.
Thank you.
Any other, Councilmember Patton?
Yeah, sorry. Just to put an exclamation point on that. Yes, I'm encouraged to see you all work. And I know when we went on our site visit, you talked about having the fencing not just go, as we see in some of the other photos, that the fencing is very contained to right behind the community, but you offered that there might be opportunities to really stretch it around that curve for greater segmentation from the community. So co-sign on that work. Oh my gosh, I lost my train of thought. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. It was there and then it was gone. I've been saying. Oh, it's back. Thank you. Sorry. Thanks for everyone for your patience there. I know that outside of community concern, there were some public comments around the joy of walking across the stream, and there was maybe some suggestions for consideration that there might be a walk-up railing to peer over and see the creek as it goes by. So just if you can factor that in your continued deliberations.
Yes, we will evaluate the potential for that as part of furthering that design, of course.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, thank you for that presentation. Also, thank you to the Parks Board for your input. This was for information purposes only. I know we'll be hearing from people tonight on this during public comment, but appreciate the efforts that you are making, and especially related to the community. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have the report and recommendation of the Raleigh Historic Development Commission. This regards commission rules of procedure.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Councilors. Tanya Tully, Senior Historic Preservation Planner. I don't have a presentation for you this afternoon. The revisions to the rules of procedure are largely procedural to update them to be in compliance with General Statutes 160D. And we also removed a lot of redundant information that is already in the UDO. So they are much more streamlined. The Raleigh Historic Development Commission adopted them at their June 20th meeting, and we are hoping that you will approve them this afternoon. I'm available for any questions.
Okay, do we have any questions? Okay. Do we have a motion?
Yes. Hi, Tanya. Hello. Thank you so much for being here, and I would love to motion to approve the rules of operation, right? I forgot what
Second.
it's called.
Rules of procedure?
Procedure. Rules of procedure for the Raleigh Historic Development Commission.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that was unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now we'll go into public hearings. Our first is a petition annexation, AX 1123, at 4424 Lead Mine Road. No one has signed up in opposition.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. My name is Christopher Golden with Planning and Development, as you all know. And this is the first of two annexations that you'll have before you today in this afternoon session. This first annexation is in the 4400 block of Lead Mine Road. It's contiguous and inside the ETJ. The zoning on it is OX4 parking limited. It's a 2022 rezoning. It was approved recently in, I believe in May of this year. On that lot right now, there's a pre-existing single unit dwelling. On the rezone, the owners had indicated that they were looking to construct some sort of 4-story mixed-use building on this site. However, at this time, there are no plans. There's water available to the site. Sewer will become available once that parcel to the north is developed, which has an active site plan. And if it is annexed today, it will be brought into the boundaries of Council District A. And if you have any questions, I would be more than happy to answer them.
Do we have any questions? Okay, I'm going to open the hearing then. No one has signed up in support either. I'm going to close the hearing. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that was unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then the next one is AX 1023, 5810 Creedmoor Road.
Thank you. So this is also contiguous and inside the ETJ. This annexation is in the 5800 block of Creedmoor Road. It is, right now, it is and continues to be zoned office mixed use, three stories maximum. On this lot right now, there's a pre-existing single family home. And the proposed use on this is the owner would like to construct 5 residential townhomes on this property. There's water and sewer available. Your water is available in Creedmoor Road, and the sewer is available a short distance away. I can answer any questions that you might have. One last thing, this is also, if it's annexed today, it'll be brought into the boundaries of Council District A. So.
Okay, any questions? Okay, again, no one signed up in support or opposition, so I'm going to open the hearing and close the hearing. Do we have a motion?
Yay, density, and motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that was unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next we have rezoning TCZ 9723. This is at 4216 Whitfield Road in District C.
Good afternoon, Bronwyn Reedus with Planning and Development. The case before you is a text change to zoning conditions at 4216 Whitfield Road. The area of the site is about 2.5 acres. It's located at the corner of Battle Bridge Road and Whitfield Road, generally in the southeast edge of the city's corporate limits and ETJ, just southeast of the Barwell Road Park. The request is consistent with the 2030 Comprehensive Plan and Future Land Use Map, and Planning Commission recommended approval unanimously. Just an aerial image here to show the surrounding area of the site. As you saw on the last screen, area is very residentially zoned and is developed with different lot sizes, but majority residential. Here's an east-facing view on Battle Bridge Road, site over here to the right, north-facing on Whitfield Road, site over here on the left. There is one existing single-family home on the site. So the request is to change the currently adopted conditions of a rezoning from 1997, Z4597. Condition number 1 limits residential development on the site to single-family detached homes and accessory uses. And then the newly proposed condition number 2 would allow for 1 non-residential use to be developed on the site in the form of a place of worship. The residential entitlement is not changing with the request. The request is consistent with the comprehensive plan. It's inconsistent with a couple of policies in the comprehensive plan, and that's due to that condition number 1 that limits residential zoning entitlement. But I will note that the applicant has indicated that they intend to develop a church on the site. The Planning Commission recommended approval unanimously. The request continues to allow for an increased housing supply than what's currently developed on the site. And then there is that new added allowable use of a community gathering space on the site. Do you have any questions for me before you open the public hearing?
Any questions? Okay, I believe the applicant is here. So I will open the hearing. No one has signed up in opposition.
Thank you very much. My name is Ben Kuhn. I'm here on behalf of the applicant, the rezoning applicant, Church on the Rock in Raleigh. And here with me today are the church leaders and deacons, Mr. Gaffney Gunter, Mr. Tyrone Ayers, and Mr. Jerry Dodson. This is a fairly straightforward request. We're not really trying to change anything with respect to the zoning condition that was adopted in 1997, other than open it to allow one use that's not arguably permitted now, which is a church, which is what they plan to build. As you know, as you heard, this is a growing area of the city and county, and it begs for, of course, places to gather, for places of faith, for community. Right now, the church congregates at the Barwell Road Community Center, located about a mile to the east. They'd like to have their own home. They've located this site. It's an appropriate site. It's in a good location, right around areas where, so we would request your support for the rezoning. If you have any questions, let me know. I will be glad to address any you'd like, or any of the deacons here if they have any ability to answer your questions as well. So with that, I'd request that you approve the rezoning.
Do we have any questions? Okay, I'm going to close the hearing.
I move to adopt the proposed consistency statement dated July 5th, 2023, contained in the agenda materials, and to approve the zoning amendment with the adoption and effective dates described in the agenda item under recommended action.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, that was unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next, we have the report of the Economic Development and Innovation Committee.
No report. We still have the two items pending, the HBCU roundtable and the stormwater management regulations text change. We will not have a meeting in August, so we will meet again in September, and I can announce that meeting at our council meeting in August. Thank you.
Thank you. Growth and Natural Resources.
We do have a meeting pending on text changes and the Green Growth Toolbox. I also want to mention a couple other topics for discussion in future meetings. One is a presentation about our Greenway Master Plan. So just to get us all on the same page of what is a plan there and how do we prioritize improvements to the Greenway system. And then another topic that I'd like to cover this fall with GNR is our stormwater design manual. So we have heard some concerns about backyards flooding during adjacent development. And then I do believe we will be having some discussion in the fall about a tree protection ordinance for properties less than 2 acres. So I want to ensure that that also gets to our committee. And I just wanted to check in with anyone else on GNR or anyone who has an interest in GNR. Are there any other topics that you want to see covered this fall? And obviously we can continue to add. I just want to make sure we take the time when we have the opportunity.
Some of these will be coming to council, which then we will, work session or to the table, in which case then we can refer to committee. So what I would say is, if there's any topics that are not coming forward, like you mentioned the master plan, if you want to make a motion to ask that come to GNR, that there be, please do that.
On all of those topics, I guess if we make a motion to proceed, but then there is instead an opportunity earlier for council to review it, can we just change it at that time and say we will not have that on the calendar?
That's procedurally, it comes to council first.
Okay.
So and then we would send to committee on a vote. Now, the master plan is not coming to council. That's already been approved and whatnot. You want additional information, so you're all on the same page.
Yeah, well, let's do one at a time and then talk through them. I will make a motion to bring the Greenway Master Plan to the GNR committee. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The second topic, stormwater design manual, is that coming to council at some point in this fall?
We will be working over the summer to bring forward that work session agenda list for you guys. I do know there is some work being done in stormwater that is in alignment with additional work, so that we're not duplicating efforts. I think it will be, if you'll give us an opportunity when you come back in August, we'll have a better answer for you.
Okay, so I'll just put that on my list for now to bring back in August, and
Yes.
we'll know the dates and things. Okay,
Yes.
that sounds good. And then when it comes to the tree protection ordinance, I know that's something that we still need to talk about as a council, whether we move forward. Would it be best also in August to check in on that, Marshall, in terms of what is
Yes,
the
we would have a
schedule?
definitive date at that point. Yes.
Okay, then we can do that.
Okay.
So I think for now, we do have the text change and green growth toolbox for our August meeting.
Yes.
So I'll stop there. I do have something as well on the transportation committee. I don't know if that one's next.
Well, just Safe, Vibrant, and Healthy Community Committee, we have no, there are no items in committee, so we will not be having a meeting. And then Transportation and Transit.
No items, no report.
So a couple items also on Safe, Vibrant, and Healthy. I'm curious, and this, again, I guess has to do with our work sessions. When will we have the Prince Hall Historic Overlay District work session? Do we have a date on that one? Because we do have a rezoning case September 5th, and I want to make sure that that one, because it is in the district, that we're able to have the work session, or perhaps we have a committee meeting instead, just to make sure we have that opportunity.
So yes, so staff is trying to line that up right now, trying to be sensitive to the fact that that item is on the September agenda. And we were looking at overlay districts, period, so that we wouldn't have to have two touch points necessarily, but talk about overlay districts as a whole and then bring forward the Prince Hall district. So again, I hate to keep saying August, but this is part of our summer work. We get together and put all of our minds together and kind of look out the schedule for the rest of the year and try to designate what needs to happen prior to agenda items that we know of. So I can send you that probably in a manager's update, if not this Friday, next Friday for sure. But we are ultra sensitive to the September 5th date as well.
Great, thank you. I also did want to apologize for any incorrect statements that I made at the last council meeting regarding the Raleigh Historic Development Commission, and this is part of the reason why I really want that educational session on the district, the Historic Overlay District. I read a statement from a resident that provided a personal perspective about the formation of the Prince Hall Historic Overlay District, and it was not my intent to convey that this one opinion accurately described actions regarding establishment of the district, and I'm just really committed to learning more before our next vote impacts the district and to become more educated. So I'm really looking forward to however it comes to us. Yeah. And then finally on transportation, is that where we are? Okay. Just making sure we get to all these in the fall.
See, I was trying to get y'all out of here on a reason.
Well, we have a bet on the time here, so. This was something Councilmember Black and I had spoken about, was having a session in our transportation committee about Six Forks Road improvement project, just because we have not been on councils in the past. Yeah, I'm going to turn that to you.
Can I offer? I talked to Michael and I raised the concern about what we had around, specifically you and I, Jane, around the trees. Trees are so important. Save the trees. And he actually got back to me and said that they'd rather put together something with the staff on options that could possibly rework some of those things. So I don't know when he's going to be bringing that back, but I think it might be best at his discretion to kind of wait. I don't know if Michael's in here right now. Michael, hey Michael. So I'm going to kind of follow Michael's lead on this. And I told you, I talked to some of the counselors about some of the trees. So just to see what they can bring back to us around redoing it, because it is really over budget right now and there's opportunity to kind of rethink things. So maybe not sending it to committee right now, and just allowing the staff to kind of bring some more options back to us about what can be done or what can be different.
That sounds good to me. Thank you. And then one other item for the Transportation Committee to consider, and this would probably be also, Michael, with your input on dates and how to do this, would be to look at the transportation bonds from the past. I know that, we're going to be looking at, transportation bond for 2024, and I would like to get educated on how we've spent those monies in the past, how we've, identified projects, just to kind of get us kind of set up for what does this look like typically. So that was an idea I had for the August Transportation Committee meeting, but I would also really leave that to your discretion on timing.
I think it might be appropriate for a work session, since there hasn't been a transportation bond with most council members on here. So I think that might be an appropriate topic so everybody is educated. I think that Corey and I are the only ones who have been involved with a transportation bond. So
perhaps come back to August then also for dates on that one. And if you're struggling at all on getting everything in your calendar, Marshall, again, I want to make sure that we use our committee time when it makes sense.
Okay,
So,
sounds
thank
like a
you.
plan. Yes, and on our work plan internally as well, we had an update on transportation bonds. So that's something we had already kind of plugged in anyway. So it's just a matter of getting it scheduled.
And sometimes these can fall under manager's report as well, full council, and if we need additional comment, we can refer to a committee. That's another approach. Councilmember Jones?
Two things. One, for transportation, I am meeting with Pat Young to talk about transit overlay districts, but as I am not familiar with it, I'm just wondering, is that a place where we can also talk about it, or is the process that it comes to us first for a public hearing and then we send it? I just feel like in this, we have 8 hours of committee scheduled time every month to talk about strategic plan items, and I don't feel like we're using that at all. So even if there isn't something sent there, if it's just a space for us to say, hey, what about safe, vibrant, healthy communities? How do we want to see that in the future? What do we want to see as our strategic plan? I'm really interested in looking, and I'm mixing the two things, so this is number two, utilizing that time for public conversation so the public can see what are we doing about for transit, what are we talking about for growth and natural resources. I'm really interested in just making that a standing, the committee meets, just to have a conversation if nothing's sent there.
That is totally in your purview. If you all want to change the use or kind of readjust the use of the committees that with the majority vote on council, you can do that procedurally. I think it came up 2 or 3 months ago. We kind of talked about the way it's been done, but you all can use that space and time to kind of alleviate some of the pressure that's on our current agenda, as you all have talked about, and as well as bringing forward some additional engagement opportunities with the public. So totally up to you all. Y'all tell us that's what you want to do, we'll make it happen. So we'll have to work with the committee chairs of each committee to make sure how we'll move it forward each month.
Yeah, I was just going to add that Mayor Pro Tem Branch obviously isn't here, and he's the chair of the Transportation and Transit Committee. I'm vice chair, but I don't want to commit him to things. For the transit overlay districts, I know that the Planning Commission requested an extension. They're looking at that. I think typically what would happen is when they're ready to send that to council and we have the public hearing, if we feel that more discussion or work needs to be done, then it would be referred to a committee. So I think at this time, it would make most sense to let the Planning Commission conclude their work, and then when they send us their recommendations, then have that discussion at that time if we feel like we cannot address at the table. Regarding other topics, if you've got other ones, we can move them to Transportation Committee today, and then Mayor Pro Tem Branch can work with the committee members on scheduling. So that's all.
Yeah, I'm just going to plan to check back in on these in August and see where we're at. And I appreciate everyone's input and ideas and, yeah, continued education.
Thank you. Okay, next we have the report from Mayor and City Council. Councilmember Melton, we'll start with you.
No report.
Councilmember Patton.
Hello. Hi, everyone.
couple things in my ongoing effort to highlight things that happen in the consent agenda that are for the good of the city or the good of District B. Through the consent agenda today, we authorized the lease of 13 city-owned parcels for the purpose of affordable housing, and 27 units will be created. And it's just like a fraction of that longer ongoing project, which predates me for sure, but like the lease of that land is one aspect of getting that done. So I thought that was really worth celebrating. And then also the Brayfield subdivision in my in my district got a speed limit reduction. So yay for safety. One other thing, I just wanted to, a couple other things. Sorry, let me not set the wrong expectation. A few other things. My daughter got to attend Green Road Express Camp. Is that what it's called, Stephen? Express Camp. And so I just first wanted to like shout out the staff for a really well-run program. My child was safe and seen, and I appreciate that. But I also just really wanted to like uplift that programming as not only, you know, summer fun, but like an economic driver, you know, because of safe and affordable and predictable childcare, parents are able to continue working and contribute to our community and to our economy. And so, yeah, I'm just grateful for your staff for being part of that. So thank you. Also wanted to announce that I'm be having a town hall on August 8th at Abbott's Creek Community Center at 7 p.m. And I wanted to request from my colleagues the use of some council budget for the purpose of childcare and translation services. If everyone's, does that need a motion?
Could you state the dollar amount?
I don't have a dollar amount. It hasn't been, I was told I needed to sort of see if everyone was amenable to it so they could pursue how much it would cost.
Okay.
So,
All in favor? Aye.
Cool. Thanks, y'all.
That's
Appreciate
very
it.
thoughtful.
Happy to do it. And then my last thing, I'll leave y'all alone for 6 weeks. As we go into summer recess, I just really, like all of you staff members out there, please take your PTO. It's like really, really vital to be away from work sometime, and y'all do a great job, but please take your PTO. That's it. That's all I got.
Councilmember Black?
Yes, rest is radical. Councilmember Patton, I definitely believe in that. It's a form of resistance, so get to it, you guys. I really don't have anything for today. I wanted to put on everybody's mind that I'm going to be reaching out to you about somebody who reached out to me. They want to bring a music accelerator program to the area and do some workforce development and around the creative space. And as we are, building and growing the city, our creative community is often the ones that are most directly impacted by like the ability to like live and like be mobilized here. And so they're based in Detroit, and they have picked Raleigh as one of the areas that they want to come to bring this accelerator program to, which would ultimately like bring funding directly into the creative community to allow them to like grow and develop. And in turn, like as they are receiving money, they would put that back into our local economy. So I think there's a lot of really good things in it. And I wanted to share that with you guys because I was like, who else did you talk to in council? And they were like, nobody. And that's the Generate Music Accelerator Program. So if you see me, reach out to you about that. Read the email. All right, that's all.
Councilmember Jones?
Thank you. A few things. First, big shout out to Stage Your Dance Productions in Briar Creek. They hosted our last community meeting last week. Our next one will be taking July off, and we'll be meeting back in August, but I don't have a date or a place set yet. So if you're interested in hosting, please reach out. I want to make a mention about that meeting. I was really proud for everyone that attended, but specifically I had 3 high school students from Broughton High School come out to just learn and sit and talk. And I really want to uplift that because I think participation, especially from our youth, is something to really cherish. So I wanted to highlight that. Last Friday, a big shout out to Peach Road Community Center and our Parks Department for hosting the Country of Moldova last week, and I got to be part of that. It was fascinating. I got to see a new center that I hadn't seen before, and Peach Road is amazing. The work that you guys are doing to bring communities together is phenomenal. So thank you for that. And sticking with the Parks Department, because you guys are being cherished today, I got my 2 daughters into after-school care at Briar Creek. So thank you guys for allowing me to, I think I missed the registration date, but I was able to email and you guys helped me make that work. So appreciate everyone on staff. I hope you all have a fantastic summer vacation. Please, yes, as Councilor Patton said, take your PTO. And I can't wait to get back to work in the fall. Thank you.
Councilmember Harrison.
Yeah. For anyone that would like to get together on Saturday, July 15th, we will have a District D Neighborhood Alliance meeting at 9:30 a.m. at the Crowder Center. The topic is a vision to end homelessness. So love for anyone who's out there to join us. But I also hope that you take a big long break this summer. So for anyone who stays really focused on local politics, you can take a break. We will be back August 15th. And I do want to mention one item for consideration for council. I would like to propose an affordable housing summit for 2024 and ask for support from my fellow council members. I'm envisioning this as an educational day-long event to bring together local and national leaders in affordable housing to share lessons learned and to explore best practices. I'd like to ask staff to scope out options to bring in a neutral or third-party facilitator or convening entity to coordinate such a summit. I also want to ensure that cost is not prohibitive for attendees and that we have participation at the summit and leadership and planning from a broad range of interests, including, but not limited to, impacted residents, affordable housing developers, employers focused on workforce housing, the nonprofit sector, and government partners. So I'd like to ask for your support. That is a motion, again, for staff to scope out options for us, our consideration. And I have been also in conversation with Mayor Pro Tem Branch and Councilmember Fort on this topic. And I will say they are in support, although they're not here to vote today.
Second. Do we need a motion?
Yes, I think we've already made the motion, and this would be clear about what staff's role is at this point.
Okay. All in favor? Aye. I think that's a great idea, and I was not on council at the time, but I do remember, I think maybe Ken Bowers had kind of led this effort. They had teamed with ULI, and they brought in people from throughout the country to do a summit. It might be a framework that they could look at, just kind of, go back and say, okay, what worked well, what more could we do? But there's a framework there for that. Okay, thank you for bringing that up. All right. I want to say to staff, unbelievable job last night, the July 4th celebration. Stephen, Kate, Joey, all of your team, police, fire, amazing job. We had more than 20,000 people there. When you looked from the stage, it was like a mass of people. And it was amazing to watch as people were just pouring in to see the fireworks. And not only was that amazing, I think adding the food trucks really helped create like a sense of place. And
we just need more of them.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the dance party is always fun to watch the kids and everybody out there. But it was an incredible job, and the fireworks show itself was mind-blowing. It really well done. We had no incidents as well, which, very proud of that. And I really want to thank our police and fire for, adding that extra sense of safety and making people feel comfortable about being there. So great work. Thank you. And then the second item I have, and I want to commend our art staff, Sarah Powers and team for this. Raleigh has been named one of 17 U.S. cities who are finalists for the Bloomberg Philanthropies Public Art Challenge. We have been working on this for a while now, but got word earlier this month, and it was formally announced. Our art project is on equity. It's called Our Art, Our Voice, Our Future, and it's a series of 3 installations and community-led symposiums that will address the loss of Black cultural history and history in Southeast Raleigh. And this kind of focus on St. Agnes and some of the surrounding neighborhoods, but we have people in the arts community leading this effort. We will be contacted by Bloomberg to see what next steps are and how we go about with the interviews. So exciting. It's $1 million grant. So that could really help us move forward this particular project in a bigger and better way. So that's it. Let's see. Now we have Hispanic and Immigrant, appointments. You're going to go first with Hispanic and Immigrant Affairs Board, who we heard from earlier today. And I want to just urge people in that community to get folks to file applications. After going through Granicus, there are very few applications there. And I'm going to, Megan, you might want to reach out, and I'm going to reach out as well.
Yeah, I have a good conversation going with our chair, so we'll get some applications flowing in there.
Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon. As you stated, Hispanic and Immigrant Affairs Board, 1 alternate vacancy, community category. An individual was appointed as an alternate during the last meeting, and it was later determined that she resides outside of city limits and is therefore not eligible to serve. Councilmember Black nominated Abigail Mulry, so that will appear in your next ballot. And we hope to see some increased numbers of applications. Historic Cemeteries Advisory Board, 2 regular vacancies. Chantel Miles received 6 votes, so would be appointed. That remaining vacancy will appear on your next ballot. Human Relations Commission, 1 alternate vacancy. An individual was appointed as an alternate during the last meeting. It was later determined that he resides outside of city limits and is therefore not eligible. We have a few nominations here. Councilmember Jones nominated Jakari Clayton. Mayor Baldwin nominated Harriet Wardley, and Councilmember Black nominated Jamie Lynn Robinson, so all 3 of those names will appear on your next ballot. Human Relations Commission, 1 regular vacancy. Robert Courts received 4 votes, and Mayor Baldwin nominated Thomas McAllister, so both of these names will appear on your next ballot. Police Advisory Board, 2 alternate vacancies. Cole McMullen received 4 votes. Few nominations here as well. Councilmember Jones nominated Timothy Guthrie. Mayor Baldwin nominated Ryan Torrey, and Councilmember Harrison nominated Jaden Grimes. So all 4 of these names will appear for these 2 vacancies on your next ballot.
I would like to co-nominate Jaden.
Okay. Next, under nominations, Board of Adjustment, 1 alternate vacancy, county appointee. Just a reminder to provide suggestions for county consideration, and that individual must reside within the ETJ. Community Engagement Board.
Excuse me, the 2 people who could not serve, could we check in and see if either of them have a background?
Sure.
In
I did that.
legal or?
Yeah, I would, I'll go ahead and just nominate Travis Groom.
It has to come from the county.
Oh, the
I
county
believe.
has to, that's right.
Yes.
Okay, that's
So
right.
if you would pass that name on to the county for nomination.
We get Travis Groom in
Sure.
front of them if that, he has the skills that I think would work, and he was appointed to HRC, then we determined he lived in the county, so he can't, but he's in the industry, so that might work.
So what I'll do, my contact over at the county, I will send his application and just mention that the council supports his appointment. I'll send that, and I'll keep you guys updated on what happens. Community Engagement Board, 1 regular vacancy, longtime resident slot. We have received a resignation from Mary Lucas, So therefore, you have that vacancy for consideration, which will appear in your next ballot.
I have a question whether this is a city council appointment or staff appointment. I think staff had appointed this before, so I'm just looking for some consistency here.
You know what? Let me double check. And Taisha just messaged me as I'm sitting here. Yes, staff. Just wanted to double check. So let's just disregard that for now, and I'll confer with staff and bring that back.
Okay, thank you.
Greater Raleigh Convention and Visitors Bureau, 1 regular vacancy. The term of Jay Mahan is expiring. He would like to be considered for reappointment. There's also a letter of support from the Bureau attached for your consideration. He does fill a specific slot.
I move to reappoint.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, it's unanimous.
Historic Cemeteries Advisory Board, 1 regular vacancy. The term of Amy Fix is expiring, and she would like to be considered for reappointment.
I move to reappoint.
Can I ask why? Oh, no, never mind. I'm reading it wrong. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, thank you. Unanimous.
Hispanic and Immigrant Affairs Board, 1 alternate vacancy, professional category. Katie Crisp, who was recently appointed as an alternate member, just accepted a new job that does not meet the requirements for this slot. So this will appear in your next ballot for nominations. Planning Commission, 1 regular vacancy. The term of Jennifer Lampman is expiring, and she would like to be considered for reappointment.
Make a motion to approve Jennifer's reappointment.
I'll second it.
Can I ask a quick question? What was the attendance? I don't have it right in front of me.
20 out of
21 out of
pulled up
30?
Mhm.
And were they excused, do you know?
I did not receive information on whether they were excused or not, or reasoning behind the absences, but
My understanding is she started a new position and had some coordination efforts. But Jennifer's the one person on the Planning Commission who has a very strong background in affordable housing and affordable housing financing. So she brings a lot of value. So there's a motion to second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Anyone opposed? Okay, thank you.
And lastly, we have the Raleigh Transit Authority, 1 regular vacancy. A resignation has been received from regular member Josh Gill. Past practice would be to elevate the longest-serving alternate member, which is Dr. Terrence Ruth, who was just recently appointed not too long ago, but has attended the only meeting they've had, and declare a vacancy for an alternate slot.
Move to appoint Dr. Ruth to a regular vacancy.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That didn't take long.
Got that upgrade fast.
Yeah, so that will, that alternate vacancy will appear in the next ballot. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that update. Next, we have the report and recommendation of the city attorney.
One item in today's meeting, back on April 4, the council asked the city attorney to review a resolution proposed by the Human Relations Commission. And the council asked both to identify legal issues, to look at what other jurisdictions in North Carolina have done, and then to provide options for the council to consider. And the matter is before you today to do all of those things. As you could see from the memorandum that we have provided, North Carolina is a state in which all authority comes from the state itself. And local governments, like cities, have only that authority that the General Assembly gives to them. And so step 1 for most legal analyses is to look at what the statutes authorize the city to do. And so in carrying out this review, I've taken a look at 160A 492. And that's the statute that authorizes human relations, community action, and manpower development programs. And I've also looked at the HRC resolution, and in the memo that we provided on page 2, listed items by bullet points. And none of those are issues that can't be overcome, but they are legal issues for the council to be aware of. However, when you ask what other jurisdictions have done, I've looked and found that there are 8 jurisdictions total that have done anything that I could find that's similar. 2 of those counties and 4 of those, 6 of those towns and cities. And I've got a chart that is included in the backup that shows that there's a really broad range of how jurisdictions have approached this issue. None identical to what is presented by the HRC resolution. The last task that you assigned to your city attorney was to look at options. Clearly, if I'm providing options, I say there is the existing resolution that is out there. But my responsibility is to give you other suggestions. And so after looking closely at what state law allows, I have 2 options that the council may wish to consider. One is the council could decide it doesn't want a resolution at all, that instead it wants to continue the efforts that it's already started to deal with underlying problems. So that is an option, that the council continues its work to deal with underlying problems by focusing efforts it deems appropriate, and there would not be a resolution required. A second option is to consider a different resolution, and I have put together a draft that, from my perspective, closely aligns with that state law that authorizes action. It's a little different, not in the preliminary whereas provisions, but it takes a little different approach in what is authorized. It recognizes the key expertise of staff and encourages activities at a staff level. The word encourage is an important one. Certainly, if the council adopted the alternate resolution that I'm proposing, telling a staff that they are encouraged to take action is certainly strong language that lets the staff understand what the priorities are at the council level. So at this point, we have, I think, fulfilled the request that was made back in April. I'm available for any questions, but I wanted to provide this as information to you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions, further questions for the city attorney? Councilmember Black?
Hi. So you talked about actions that we've taken to address the underlying issues. What are some of those things?
So the efforts that you've done to deal with poverty and to address homelessness and to address anti-discrimination efforts. So those were the things that I had in mind with that statement.
Okay, thank you. And so I guess my caveat lies with the word encourage. Is that where we're, like, are we directing it to a specific space? Because I know we had talked about that previously. So I'm just trying to understand, like, where that work would lie. And
so the choice of language is absolutely the council's. And certainly you could use the word direct. You could use any other word that you think adequately conveys what you want to do. I use the term encourage because it sends a strong message to staff about what you do, but it does recognize that staff has some flexibility in what it comes back to you with recommendations.
Thanks. Thanks for the clarity.
Councilmember Patton?
Yeah, hi, thanks. A couple questions. If the council were to take that word encourage and give it a more weight, like directs city staff, what, in your view, would be like any ramifications of that?
I think it's stronger language, and that appears to be something more compelling and limiting in the flexibility that staff has.
Could I ask the city manager to respond to that as well, since I think it reflects on what we'd be asking you to do?
Yeah, it's a great question, and Dottie, you did an amazing job. You did an amazing job explaining. We had conversations for a couple weeks talking about the right choice of word to make sure that we're not limiting or committing to something that procedurally we don't have policy guidance and direction to do, or legislatively we don't have the authority to necessarily do. I think the firm commitment stands and rests in the fact that we elevated DEI from an office to a department, and that was one of our key goals, one of my key goals, even when I was ACM. And so I think that level of commitment is there, but I don't want us to overcommit and under-deliver in that, because this is a heavy lift, not that it doesn't need to be, but staffing, financial resources, to be able to do all of the components and the expectations that have been lifted through this resolution will require some obligations that we don't necessarily have in place right now. So I wouldn't want the word to say direct, and then there's an expectation we'll have this done in 3 months, or when we come back in August, and then we can't deliver on that promise, and we don't have the necessary resources to carry it out. But understanding there is a firm commitment from not just the Department of Equity and Inclusion, our NDO ordinance that we worked very deliberately, intentionally on in the past to make sure that we've got not only policies and procedures that we're required to have via law, but those that we think are in the best standing to make sure that this is a progressive city that sees all, hears all, and, is accompanying and, opening to all. So again, we will go with whatever language. I just did not want it to be so directive that to our interim city attorney's perspective would be limiting in the flexibility that we'd be able to bring forward, because we could get creative in a way that we bring forward some ideas, and obviously in conjunction with the Department of Equity and Inclusion as well as the HRC, which from my lens and my research, most of these types of commissions and works and bodies of work kind of rest.
Councilmember Melton and then Councilmember Black.
On the alternate resolution, paragraphs 4 and 6, paragraph 4 says calls on the city, and then paragraph 6 says encourages city administration. I totally understand being deliberate with our language so that there's some flexibility. But I also think that the word calls and encourages doesn't really provide a sense of accountability. So could we use authorize the city, authorize instead of, that way you have some flexibility, but I want it to be clear that there is some authority to bring us back, whether that's with the budget next year.
Yes.
More funding requests to help build out a program to implement and to work through some of these actions that we've started that could use maybe a boost. But so I would suggest that we use authorize in paragraph 4 and paragraph 6.
Your attorney background just came out.
Absolutely. I was going to say.
And I don't even do this kind of law.
Yes, that works for me. Does that work for you?
Absolutely,
right.
that's fine.
I like it too. Sorry. I like it too. I just wanted to note like what the city manager was saying around like this work is not something that is going to be done in 3 months. It might not even be done in 6 months. And more to what Councilmember Melton was saying, I definitely think that it needs to be brought back with considerations when we are doing budget things. Like it's going to be work that is held within our next budget consideration. So, whatever language like kind of helps get it moving in the direction so that we can be more open and thoughtful and intentional about the work without being like, we can do these things specifically since we are a Dillon Rule state. So that's what I was going to say, really what Councilmember Melton said around like the budget considerations and just like the timing of everything, like please, it's been a process to get it to this point. So just the understanding that this isn't something that's going to be done like immediately before the end of this year. Now we have all of these plans in place for redoing segregation and Jim Crow, undoing.
Do you have a motion?
Definitely not redoing.
Do you have a motion?
A couple of questions.
Yes, a motion to approve the HRC resolution with the amendments that have been made and the
wording on that.
So I would recommend a motion to approve the alternate resolution with a change to paragraphs 4 and 6 using the term authorize.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, that was unanimous. Thank you. Okay, now we have closed session. Oh, I'm sorry, clerk.
I'm really offended.
That's
Couple
on the
sets of
bottom
minutes
here.
for consideration of approval.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, thank you. All right, closed session motion. Motion is in order to enter closed session pursuant to GS 143-318-11A3 to consult with this city attorney to preserve the attorney-client privilege, to give instructions concerning the handling or settlement of a potential claim in the following matter: State of Maharad versus City of Raleigh and W.B. Edwards, U.S. District Court, case number 520 CV 396. And also City of Raleigh versus North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality and C Office of Administrative Hearings, case number 23 EHR 3096. And then GS 143-318-11A6 to consider the qualifications, competence, performance, character, fitness, conditions of appointment, or conditions of initial appointment of an individual public officer, employee, or prospective public officer or employee.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. just returned from closed session where the council provided direction to staff on the items listed in the closed session motion. Council will reconvene at 7 p.m. this evening. Thank you.